They tell you California is all sunshine. Don't you believe it? There's a corner of it where the summer comes in cold and gray off the ocean, where the foghorns moan all night long, and a kid pulls on a jacket to go out and play in the middle of July. You ever know a fog like that? And down in that fog there were neighborhoods, the old kind, where everybody knew everybody, where the butcher knew your name and the priest knew your grandmother, and the same families had lived on the same block for 50 years. You didn't lock the door, and you couldn't get away with a thing, because somebody's mother was always watching. Most of those neighborhoods are gone now, or changed past knowing. But if you grew up in one, it never quite leaves you. I'm Henry. Welcome to sweet old America. With this channel, we're going back to those golden days of America. Now, today we're going to one of those neighborhoods, San Francisco. North Beach, the Italian Quarter, up under Telegraph Hill. The 1960s, when the morning smelled of coffee roasting and fresh bread, and the foghorns sang you awake. When your father went down to the boats before dawn, and your grandmother had the Sunday sauce on by 9. When the cable car clanged past the door, and Willie Mays roamed center field out at the windy ballpark. When there was a brand new John Wayne picture down at the show house most every year, and a line of kids clear around the block to see the Duke ride. And when Elvis was on the radio, and Sinatra on the record player, and the whole family crowded around the television for Ed Sullivan of a Sunday night. A whole loud, warm world ran up and down those steep streets, and you belonged to it. I make these for the folks who remember. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, strong, the way they made it down there, and find your chair. The foghorns are going out on the bay, the bread's still warm, and the whole steep, foggy city is just waking up. The foghorns wake you the way they do all summer long, low and far off and mournful out on the bay, one answering another, the sound of San Francisco breathing in its sleep. You've heard them every summer night of your life, those horns, and you don't really even hear them anymore, the way you don't hear your own heart. They're just the sound the city makes, the lullaby it sings itself all through July. Some mornings the fog's so thick you can't make out the building across the street. Some mornings it's already shredding apart and there's a patch of hard blue burning through overhead. You never know till you look, and by the look of that window, this is a thick one. You lie there a minute under the blankets in the gray half-light and just listen to them, and to the flat coming awake around you. The window's a square of soft nothing, white-gray, the fog right up against the glass. It could be 6 in the morning or noon. There's no telling by that light, but the smell tells you it's morning. Coffee, the good strong stuff, Graffeo from down on Columbus that your mother grinds fresh. And under it, the warm yeast smell of bread. And under that, always, the salt of the bay and the green, wet smell of the fog itself. Somewhere down the block, a cable car goes by, and you hear it before you see anything, the deep hum of the cable running in its slot under the street, and then the clang of the bell as it takes the corner. Your grandmother's already up. You can hear her in the kitchen, the old soft shuffle of her slippers, a pot set down, a few words of Italian to herself or to the saints. She's been up since who knows when, your nonna, the way the old ones always are. The stove lit, the coffee made, the day's first work done before anybody else's feet hit the floor. She came over from the old country as a girl, on a boat, and she has not once in all the years since slept past 5 in the morning. There's a little shrine on the kitchen wall, the Madonna, a saint or two, a candle that's always lit, and she crosses herself going past it without breaking stride, automatic as breathing. And your father's already gone, long gone, down to the wharf before first light the way he is every working morning, out on the cold water while the rest of the city sleeps. You get up and pad to the kitchen in your sweater, because even in July you want a sweater in this fog. And your grandmother, your nonna, turns from the stove and looks you over the way she does, head to foot, and decides you'll live, and sets a cup of coffee with a lot of milk in front of you, and a heel of yesterday's bread to dunk in it. Marie, your sister, 16 and not yet human at this hour, has the little radio going low on the windowsill. The morning man on KYA talking fast between the songs. That radio's the heartbeat of Marie's whole world. The top 40 off KYA and KFRC, the new songs she has to hear the very second they come out. The British ones now, too, that have everybody her age losing their minds. She'll have it going from the second she's up till the second she's made to shut it off, and she knows every word of every song, and exactly which boy each one is secretly about. You give her a hard time over it. You also know every word yourself, not that you'd ever let on. The fog presses white at every window. The whole steep city is out there somewhere under it, hidden, waiting. And the day, your whole free summer day, is yours. You finish your coffee and you're out the door and down the stairs and into the street. And the neighborhood is just opening its eyes. North Beach in the morning is the best show in town if you've got nowhere to be. The shopkeepers are cranking down their awnings along Columbus and Grant. The smell of Liguria's focaccia is pulling people toward the corner of Washington Square, where the line's already going, and where, if you're not early, they sell clean out and lock the door, and that's that for the day. The old men have taken their benches in the square, and their hats and their good wool coats against the chill, reading the Italian paper and arguing about nothing. The same arguments they had yesterday. Down on Grant, the antique shops and the little Italian places are unlocking, and here and there now, mixed in among them, the new ones. A coffee house with poetry taped in the window. A bookstore where the beatniks go. The bearded young men the old Italians eye with deep suspicion and secret amusement both. The two worlds rub along on the same blocks, the old country and whatever this new thing is, and nobody quite knows what to make of the other. And the espresso machines hiss away for all of them just the same. The twin white spires of Saints Peter and Paul stand up over all of it, ghostly in the fog. The church that everybody in this neighborhood was baptized in and married in and will be buried out of. The pigeons wheel up off the square and settle and wheel up again. A produce truck double parks on Columbus and nobody minds. From an open second-floor window somewhere comes an opera record, some old tenor, turned up good and loud the way the old folks like it, pouring out over the whole foggy street. A cable car climbs past, packed already, the grip man clanging the bell with his foot. You could ride it for a nickel, but you mostly don't. You know every shortcut and stairway in the neighborhood, every steep alley and hidden set of steps up Telegraph Hill, and your own two legs beat waiting on the car. Some of these streets go straight up, too steep for anything but stairs, and the cars park nosed into the curb with their wheels cut hard against the hill so they won't roll off down to the bay. From the top, on a morning the fog lets you, the whole city drops away below you to the water on every side. You pass the neighborhood show house, and there's a fresh poster up in the glass case out front, big and bright under the marquee. John Wayne, 6 guns and a hat, squinting out over some painted desert. A brand new Western, just come in. Seems like there's a new John Wayne picture every year, and the kids of the neighborhood are already buzzing about this one. Who's seen it? Who's going, whether it tops the last. You file it away. There's fog coming, you can feel it in the air, and a foggy afternoon and a new John Wayne picture go together like nothing else on earth. You cut across the square and a half-dozen people say your name or your family's name. The baker, a nonna shaking out a rug from a window, one of your father's friends headed down to the boats. You can't go 10 feet without being known. You ever live somewhere like that, where you couldn't walk 1 block without 3 people calling your name? The baker, the barber, the old man on the bench, every grandmother at every window, all of them knowing you, knowing your folks, knowing your business before you knew it yourself. It could drive a young person half crazy, but I'll tell you, I'd give a great deal to be that known again, by that many people, on one short street. Stay with me a while. You head downhill toward the water because that's where your father is. And Fisherman's Wharf in the morning is a working place, not the postcard it would become. The fog's thicker down here, right off the bay, and colder, and the whole wharf smells of it, salt and diesel and fish, and the sharp tang of the crab cookers already going. The fishing boats are in, the little double-ended Monterey boats and the bigger ones, riding at the docks with their nets hung to dry and their decks being hosed down. The men in their rubber boots and their caps moving around them. These are mostly Italian men, Sicilian and Genovese, the same families that have fished this water for generations. And they call back and forth in a rough mix of Italian and English, and they all know your father. They've fished this bay their whole lives, these men, and their fathers before them, out past the gate in the dark and the cold, for the crab and the sand dabs and the salmon. And they've got the raw hands and the squint and the rolling walk to show for it. The crab pots are stacked high on the dock. The big cauldrons are steaming where they boil the morning's catch right there on the wharf for the early buyers. A pelican sits hunched on a piling like he holds the deed to it. The whole place is wet and cold and loud and alive, the real working heart of it, hours before any tourist thinks to wander down. You help where you can and keep out of the way where you can't, and you watch the older boys who work the boats for real now, 16, 17, doing a man's job. And you can hardly wait till that's you. Out past the end of the wharf, the fog sits on the water so thick you can't see Alcatraz, can't see the bridge, can't see a thing but gray. And then a boat comes sliding in out of it like a ghost, low and heavy with the catch, and the men on the dock call out to it, and it's somebody's father, somebody you know, home safe. You find him on the deck of his boat coiling line, his hands raw and sure, and he gives you a nod and maybe a job to do. Coil this, carry that. And you work alongside him a while in the cold and the fog, proud past saying just to be down here in his world. The gulls screaming overhead and the water slapping the pilings and the foghorns going. Your father doesn't talk much out here. He's no talker anywhere, but least of all on the boat, where the work is the conversation. But now and then he hands you a thing, shows you a knot, points out something in the water, and that's worth more than any speech. When the crab's running, he'll crack one open right there on the deck and give you the sweet, cold meat of it in your bare, cold fingers, standing in the fog. And it spoils you a little, that does, for crab anywhere else for the rest of your life. A lot of fathers worked like that, with their hands, with their backs, out in the cold and the dark before you ever opened your eyes of a morning. They came home smelling of the work, of fish, or of grease, or of sawdust, or of the sea, and they didn't say much about any of it. You didn't think a thing of it then. It was just your father. It was just what fathers did. It's only later you come to understand what it cost him, and what it bought you. You have a father like that? I hope you got to tell him. Toward midday, your nonna sends you on the rounds with a list and a few dollars, and doing the neighborhood shopping is its own kind of education. You go to Molinari's on Columbus, the deli that's been there since before anybody can remember, and the smell hits you at the door. The salami hanging in the window, the provolone and the prosciutto, the olives and the oil and the dim, cool spice of the place. The man behind the counter knows your nonna's order without asking and slices it paper thin and lets you have a curl of mortadella while you wait, the way he always does. Everybody shops like this, a little from this place, a little from that, fresh every single day, because that's how it's done, and because the ice boxes are small, and because it's half an excuse to stop and talk. Your nonna could give you the whole history of every shopkeeper on Columbus, who married whom, whose people came from which town back in Italy, who can be trusted on the scale, and who bears watching. The list in your pocket is in her hand, half in English and half in Italian, and you read both without thinking, the two languages just the air you've always breathed. You stop at the bakery and the cheese shop, and you carry it all home, heavy in your arms. The bags pull your arms long by the time you climb the stairs, and your nonna goes through them piece by piece, holding things up to the light, smelling the cheese, satisfied or not, and either way, it all vanishes into the kitchen to become part of the suppers all week. Nothing gets wasted in that house. Nothing. A woman who raised a family through the hard years does not throw out so much as a crust of bread. And on the way, you pass the cafe where the old men sit over their little cups of espresso and their grappa and their card games, the steam on the windows, an Italian song, or a ball game on the radio inside, the same few faces and the same few chairs they've held down for 30 years. You could set your whole life by those old men. They were young once, they'll tell you if you give them half an opening, fishermen and laborers, a couple who did well and a couple who never did. And they came over with nothing and built this whole neighborhood up out of nothing. And now they sit in the warm window with their espresso and their memories and watch it all go by. One of them slips you a candy from his pocket. Another tells you you're getting tall, that he knew your grandfather, that you've got your grandfather's same hands. It's all close, all walkable, all known, a whole world in 5 square blocks, and you've got the run of it. With the groceries dropped at home, you and Frankie drift down Grant Avenue, and a few blocks is all it takes to leave Italy behind and walk straight into China. That's the wonder of this city. North Beach runs right up against Chinatown, and you cross some invisible line on Grant and the whole world changes. The signs go to Chinese characters, red and gold and stacked down the storefronts. The smells change to roast duck and incense and dried fish, and something simmering you couldn't name to save your life. The sounds change to a language you don't speak one word of, rattling fast and musical all around you. There are roast ducks and barbecued pork hung glazed and dripping in the steamy windows, crates of strange vegetables out on the sidewalk, herb shops with 1,000 little wooden drawers and dried seahorses and deer antlers in the window, old men in dark jackets, shops crammed with firecrackers and paper kites and little carved animals. You and Frankie wander it wide-eyed, 2 Italian kids from 1 block over, in a place as foreign as the far side of the moon. And you spend your last few cents on a bag of something sweet you've never tasted, and it is the best free show in a city that's full of them. On the way back up Grant toward home, the line blurs again, the Chinese signs giving way to the Italian, the roast duck smell to espresso and bread, China back into Italy in the space of a single block, and neither one of you thinks a thing about it. It's just the city. It's just home. 2 villages from 2 far sides of the world set down right next to each other on a foggy hill, and a kid free to wander out of one and into the other and back on a summer afternoon for the price of nothing at all. By afternoon, the fog still hasn't burned off. Some days it never does this time of year. And a gray, cold, foggy afternoon means just one thing for you and Frankie: the show house. You meet up with Frankie and scrape together the price of 2 tickets and head for the neighborhood movie house. That beautiful, warm, dark cave smelling of popcorn and old velvet. And you settle down low in the seats with the rest of the kids who had the same idea. It's a quarter, maybe, for the whole long afternoon. A cartoon and a newsreel and the previews and then the picture. And you'd happily sit through it twice if the usher didn't come run you out. The seats are worn red velvet that fold up and try to fold up on you. And the floor's gone sticky. And the balconies where the big kids go to neck and to throw popcorn down on everybody. The lights go down, the curtain pulls back, that beam of dusty light shoots out over your heads to the screen, and the whole house hushes, and then roars. And what's playing is a John Wayne picture, a Western, all sagebrush and 6 guns, and the Duke himself filling up the whole screen, slow and easy and 10 feet tall, riding into some dusty town to set it right. The whole house knows just how it's going to go and loves it anyway. The kids cheer when he throws the first punch. Somebody down front talks back to the screen. For a couple of hours, there's no fog, no city, no cold. There's just the wide, dry, sunlit west up on that screen, and John Wayne squinting into it, and you and Frankie and 100 other kids out there in the dark with him. You've seen most of his pictures more than once down at this same house, and you'll likely see this one again before the week's out if the fog holds. There's something about the Duke that gets a kid right where he lives. The sheer size of him, the slow sureness, the way he's never once afraid, the way the right thing and the strong thing are always, in his world, the very same thing. You come out of there walking a little taller, you and Frankie, squinting and bow-legged, a pair of gunslingers on Columbus Avenue, until the cold, gray, real fog reminds you you're 2 kids in San Francisco, a long way from any frontier. You come out blinking into the gray afternoon, squinting like you've been somewhere, your head full of horses. You get home as the light starts to fail and the fog comes down for the night. And the flat is warm and bright and loud and smells like heaven, because supper is coming. Your nonna's been at it half the day. There's a pot of sauce that's been going low and slow since the early afternoon, and the kitchen windows are steamed up white with it. And your mother's home now too, and the 2 of them work the little kitchen together in a kind of dance they've done 10,000 times. There's never quite enough room in that kitchen, and it never once matters. Pop washes the wharf off his hands at the sink and pours his glass of the dark wine and reads you a line out of the paper. And the smell of that sauce is the smell of every good evening of your whole life. Sunday's the big one, the all-day feast. But even a plain weeknight supper like tonight's, the pasta and the bread and the bitter greens, is more than most people anywhere get, set down in front of you by 2 women who'd go without their own before they'd ever let your plate run empty. Your father comes in scrubbed and tired from the wharf, his hair still wet, smelling faintly of the sea even now, and he sits heavy in his chair with a glass of the dark wine. Marie sets the table and talks about a record she wants. There's a whole language to that table that nobody ever taught you and that you know by heart. When to reach and when to wait. How the wine goes only to the grown-ups, but your father will tip a little into your water glass on a good night and wink. How nobody leaves until your nonna's satisfied that everybody's had enough, and then a little too much. The talk runs in 2 languages at once, and leaps from the boats to the neighborhood, to the old country, to who you saw on the street today. And somebody's always laughing, and somebody's always getting after somebody. And it's loud enough that the family in the next flat could set their clock by it. And then it all comes to the table at once. The pasta with the sauce, the bread, the greens, the cheese, and the whole family crowds in close around it. Everybody talking at once and nobody listening, And somebody always reaching, the radio going, the wine poured, your nonna watching to make sure every plate is full before she even thinks of her own. It's loud, and it's warm, and it's close, and it is the center of the whole day, the whole world. And you don't think a thing of it because it happens every single night. And that supper on the table at the end of the day, somebody made that. Somebody had the sauce going since the afternoon, the bread, the whole spread, every night of the world, and never called it one thing but supper. That was your mother's, your grandmother's. That kitchen was their kingdom and their hard labor both, and they fed the whole family out of it, and never once stood there waiting on a thank you. Maybe that was you. If it was, I want you to know I see it. You ladies held those families together, one hot meal at a time. After supper, the night settles down over the neighborhood, foggy and close and quiet. And you sit a while at the front window before bed and just watch it. The fogs come in thick now, and it does something to the neighborhood, softens it, closes it in, turns the streetlights to fuzzy globes, and the neon of the Columbus Avenue signs to a smeared, warm glow down the hill. The foghorns are going again out on the bay, slow and steady. A last cable car climbs past, near empty now, its bell muffled in the fog. Somewhere, a window's open and a radio's playing low. The neighborhood settles the way it does of a night, not silent, never silent, but quieted down. A door pulled shut, a mother calling a last kid in off the street in Italian, a car laboring up the grade, the muffled clang of that last cable car heading in. The fog beads up on the window pane and runs, and in the warm flat behind you, your nonna's rosary beads click soft and slow. Your father's already turned in. He's up before dawn. Tomorrow there'll be another foggy morning just like this one. The boats, the square, the warm bread, the horns, and the day after that, another. The whole long, bright, fog-gray summer of them stacked up ahead of you. More days than you could ever hope to use. You've got no reason on earth to think they won't go on just like this forever. So you don't think about it at all. You just watch the fog smear the streetlights and let your eyes go heavy and listen to the horns out on the bay. And you sit there with your forehead against the cool glass and look down on the little glowing, foggy world of your neighborhood. The church spires lost up in the gray, the whole great famous city humming away invisible all around it. And you feel, without any words for it, exactly where you belong. You wake to another gray morning, the foghorns still going, and for a second you can't think why your heart's already up and running. And then you remember. It's the day. You and Frankie have been planning it all week, the long ride clear across the city to the ocean, to Playland. You've got streetcar fare and a little spending money knotted in your pocket, saved up nickel by nickel. You've been counting it for 3 days, the nickels and dimes from running errands and turning pop bottles in for the deposit, and you count it over one more time on the stairs going down, just to be sure. It's not much, it's everything. A planned day like this, a day clear out of the neighborhood and all the way to the far edge of the city, doesn't come but a few times in a summer, and you have earned this one. Your mother makes you take a jacket. It'll be colder out at the beach, she says. And she's right. She's always right about the fog, and you bolt your breakfast. Your nonna presses something into your hand on the way out, a little money of her own, folded small, with a whisper not to tell your mother, and tells you in Italian to be careful of the water, to mind Frankie, to eat something decent. You promise all of it and mean none of it. And you're down the stairs 2 at a time and out into the gray. Out on the street, the fog's so thick you could about wring it out, the neighborhood barely stirring. The early mass crowd headed up toward the church, a milk truck whining up the grade. But it doesn't dampen a thing. A foggy morning is just exactly the right kind of morning for the start of a great adventure. And this is going to be a great adventure. You can feel it clear down in your shoes. Frankie's waiting on the corner already, bouncing on his toes, every bit as wound up as you are. You meet Frankie at the corner and the two of you head for the streetcar, because getting there is half the fun of it. The Muni car comes grinding and swaying up the line, and you swing aboard and drop your nickel and grab a seat by the window. And then you're off, clattering and rocking across the whole city. And this is the thing about a city kid. The whole of San Francisco is yours for that nickel, all of it, end to end. You watch it roll by out the window, down out of North Beach, past the edge of downtown with its big stores and its crowds, out through the avenues where the houses run in long pastel rows, and the fog sits thicker the closer you get to the sea. The car fills and empties as it goes, a woman with her shopping bags, a couple of sailors on liberty, an old man who falls dead asleep sitting straight up. A knot of kids headed the same place you are. The conductor calls the stops. The car leans into the turns, and the standees grab the straps and sway as one. You know this whole ride by heart, every landmark out the window, and there's a deep contentment in it, in being a small, free person loose in a big city, going somewhere, nobody's eye on you, the whole morning your own. You change cars downtown in the rush and clang of it, the big department stores looming up in the fog with their windows all dressed, the office crowd pouring along the sidewalks, and you and Frankie thread through it like a couple of minnows, small and quick and invisible and free. Then on to the next car and out the long avenues, and the city changes character, block by block. Italian, then a stretch of Irish, then Chinese groceries, then the long, foggy residential reaches where the families live in their row houses, and the fog never really lifts all summer. Frankie's got his transistor radio pressed to his ear, and he tips it so you can both hear. And the hits of that summer come tinny and bright out of the little speaker. The Beach Boys carrying on about California girls. The Four Seasons up in that impossible high voice. A Motown thing with a beat you can't sit still to. Frankie knows every song and the whole story behind each one. Which group's feuding, who's number one this week, what's climbing the survey. He reads the radio charts the way other kids read the box scores. The two of you argue about which song going is the best one. An old lady down the car gives you and that little buzzing radio a hard look, and Frankie turns it down a notch, and the second she looks away, he turns it right back up. The songs of that one summer, pouring tinny and bright out of a transistor radio the size of a pack of cards, clattering clear across the city on a foggy morning, it is about as good as a morning gets. You ride, and you watch, and you listen, and the city unspools, and the fog comes up to meet you. You smell it before you see it, the salt and the cold and the frying, and then the streetcar lets you off, and there it is, looming up out of the fog at the edge of the continent. Playland-at-the-Beach. It sprawls along the great highway right across from the ocean, a whole jumbled city of it, the rides and the towers and the lights, all smeared and haloed in the fog. The rackety wooden coaster, the Ferris wheel turning slow and ghostly up in the gray. The carousel's band organ pumping out its wheezy tune. And over and under all of it, the screams of the riders and the barkers' patter, and the crash of the surf just across the road. There's a rackety wooden coaster that throws you around. There's the Ferris wheel turning slow and ghostly up in the gray. There's the rotor that pins you flat to the wall by spinning, and the diving bell, and the shooting galleries, and 100 booths of games and food. The whole place is strung with bare bulbs that glow soft and fuzzy in the mist, lit even in the daytime because the fog's that thick. It's loud, mechanical, and human and oceanic all at once. And it smells of popcorn and machine grease and salt and sugar. The smell of a day at the beach, end of the world. And you pull it down deep into your lungs. You hit the coaster first, the way you have to, clattering up that first long rise into fog so thick you can't see the drop coming, which only makes it worse, which only makes it better. And then the bottom falls clean out, and you're screaming down into the gray with the cold wind tearing at you, and Frankie's hat gone for good. You ride the rotor till you're green. You take the slow Ferris wheel up into the fog, where the whole park drops away beneath you into the mist. And for 1 minute, it's just you and Frankie, hung up there in the gray quiet over the booming sea, before it swings you back down into all the noise. It's seen better days, Playland. You can tell even as a kid that it's a little faded now, a little rusted and peeling, a little rough around the edges. But to you and Frankie, stepping into it with money in your pockets and a whole day in front of you, it might as well be the gates of heaven. And it's free just to walk in. That's the beauty of it. You only pay for the rides and the food and the games. So even a near-broke kid can spend a whole day here on next to nothing, just soaking it in. And plenty do. The hard luck cases and the lonely old men drift through it too. You notice even at your age, the way they drift through any cheap, bright place down by the sea. But on a summer day, it's mostly families and kids and young couples holding hands. The whole foggy beach end of the city come out to play. You and Frankie just stand a minute and drink it in. The lights swimming in the fog, the music and the screams, the smell of it, before you spend your first nickel. Because the first nickel's a kind of ceremony, and you want to choose it right. There are sailors with their girls on their arms, and whole families with the little ones in tow, and packs of kids exactly like you, broke and free and out for the whole day. And under all the racket, a foghorn moans off the point. The sea reminding the carnival who was here first, and who'll still be here long after. You stand there a second just taking it in, the cold fog on your face, and the smell of cotton candy and corn dogs and the sea. And then you plunge in. You ride what you can afford, and you watch the rest. And you eat your way down the midway. And the best of it, the very best, is the It's It. You get one each because you have to, because that's the law of the place. The It's It, invented right here. A slab of vanilla ice cream squashed between 2 oatmeal cookies, and the whole thing dipped in dark chocolate. Cold and chewy and chocolatey all at once, and you eat it walking, in the fog, freezing, and it is perfect. You make it last as long as you can, that It's It, because once it's gone, you're that much nearer to broke. And being broke is the only thing that can end a day like this. You and Frankie pool what's left and plan it careful. 1 more ride each, or 3 more games, or save it for 1 more It's It on the way out. These are the great economic decisions of a kid's summer, made dead serious on a foggy boardwalk with sticky hands. A gull comes diving for the last of Frankie's, and he fights it off, hollering, and you about fall down laughing. You play the games you know are rigged, the ring toss, the milk bottles, the shooting gallery, and Frankie sinks every nickel he's got trying to win a stuffed bear off a shelf, and never does, and would do it again in a heartbeat. The girls go by in their own laughing packs, Marie's age, getting their fortunes told by the mechanical fortune teller in the glass box, and the boys trail after them, pretending not to. You and Frankie aren't above it yourselves. You steer past that fortune teller booth twice, hoping to be noticed, and you're not, and it doesn't matter a bit. The day's so big, nothing can dent it. You watch a man win a giant stuffed panda at the basket toss and carry it off through the crowd like a war trophy, the envy of every kid who sees him. You watch a little one lose his balloon to the fog and wail. You eat a corn dog. You are rich and free and 14, and the whole faded, glorious place is yours for the afternoon. You spend a while just walking it end to end, taking the measure of it, planning out your nickels. There's a shooting gallery where Frankie fancies himself a marksman and proves otherwise. There's a fellow who guesses weights and ages and guesses yours close enough to be spooky. There's saltwater taffy being pulled in a window by a slow chrome machine, and the sweet smell of it mixing with the popcorn and the hot grease of the corn dogs and the salt off the sea. You're cold clear to the bone, and you could not possibly care less. The barkers call you over. The carousel turns. The whole faded, foggy place is loud and bright and alive. Now, that midway, us fellas would sink every last nickel we had into those crooked games. The ring toss, the milk bottles, all of them rigged 6 ways from Sunday, trying to win some girl a cheap stuffed bear. And you girls, you let us, didn't you? Even knowing better. You took the bear and you smiled like it was the crown jewels. The boy, the prize, the long walk down the boardwalk. You remember being on the other end of that? I hope you do. I surely do. And then the funhouse, which is the heart of the whole place, and the strangest, finest part of the day. You hear her before you're even through the door, laughing Sal, the great mechanical fat lady up over the entrance, rocking and shaking and pouring out that endless, crazy recorded cackle that carries clear down the midway, that you'll hear in your dreams tonight. There's something about that laugh. It's jolly and it's awful both at once. Too big, too long, a little bit mad, and you love it, and it gives you the willies in equal measure, the way the best things at a place like this always do. Kids dare each other to stand right under her and look up. The whole funhouse runs on that mix, fun with a real edge of danger sewn right into it. The floor dropping out, the dark, the mirror that swallows you whole. The kind that makes a kid shriek and then go straight back and line up to do it all over again. It's the sort of place where you make a friend and an enemy in 5 minutes flat. Some kid shoves you off the spinning disc, you shove him right back. And 2 minutes later, the two of you are going down the slide together like old pals. The dares fly thick. Stand right under Sal and look up. Ride the spinning disc to the bitter end. Go down the slide 2 on 1 sack. You and Frankie take every dare there is and invent a few of your own, and come staggering out the far end, bruised and breathless and grinning, and get right back in the line. Inside, it's all worn wood and craziness. The giant slide you ride down on a burlap sack, 3 stories of polished wood, your stomach left up at the top. The big spinning wooden disc that flings everybody off. The floors that buck and roll under you. The barrels you walk through that turn and turn. The hall of mirrors that makes you fat and thin and upside down. You lose a good 10 minutes in that mirror maze, the two of you, cracking up at the warped fat versions of yourselves and the stretched skinny ones, walking smack into the clean panes you'd have sworn were openings. A little kid gets himself good and lost in there and starts to cry, and you steer him back out to his mother. The whole place is worn and a little grimy and held together with old paint and faith, and that's half the charm of it. There's nothing slick or careful about any of it. Just rackety wooden joy. You and Frankie go through it again and again till you're dizzy and bruised and laughing too hard to stand, while Sal laughs and laughs and laughs over all of it. And outside, the fog presses against the dirty windows, and the surf booms away unheard. When you've worn the funhouse out, you cross over toward the water, up to the cliff house on its rock above the sea, because you can't come all this way and not look at the ocean. The cliff house stands up there on the point, and below it and just north lie the great ruined pools of the Sutro Baths, that huge glass-roofed swimming palace from the old days, going to wrack now, the iron rusting and the glass gone dim, a beautiful, enormous ghost of a thing your Nona says she swam in as a girl. You try to picture it the way she tells it, the great glass roof, the warm pools, the crowds in their old-fashioned bathing costumes, the bands playing, and you can't quite make it fit the rusted wreck below you now, the broken glass and the green slime and the cold gray sea washing in through the gaps. But that's the way of it out here at the edge. The sea takes everything back in the end. Even now, there are folks who'll pay a dime to go down and walk through the ruin of it, for the strangeness, for the ghosts. Out on Seal Rock, the sea lions haul out and bark, dozens of them, their racket carrying up over the surf. You could watch the sea lions for an hour, the way they heave and flop and shove each other off the best spots on the rock, and bellow about it, fat and clumsy up there, and then all sudden grace the second they pour back into the water. Frankie gives them names. The fog drifts and tears for a moment, and you can see clear out to a freighter sliding by, low and gray, bound out under the bridge you can't see, toward the open ocean and the far side of the world. And then the fog closes back over it, and it's gone. And there's just the gray again, and the cold, and the boom of the surf. You go down onto Ocean Beach itself for a few minutes, out onto the wide, hard, gray sand, and the wind off the water about knocks you flat, and the surf comes in big and cold and endless. No place for swimming, nothing at all like the warm postcards of California beaches. This is the other California, the cold, gray, far edge of it. You scratch your names in the wet sand with a stick of driftwood and watch the next wave haul them back out. You skip a few flat stones. Your ears ache with the cold. And then you turn your backs on the whole gray Pacific and climb up to catch the car home. And beyond it all, the Pacific just goes, gray and cold and endless. The fog sitting right down on the water, so you can't tell where the sea ends and the sky starts. The far, cold edge of the whole country. You and Frankie stand at the rail in the wind with your collars up and watch it a while, not saying much. Two kids at the end of the land, the spray coming up cold off the rocks. There was a place like that for every one of us. A rickety old amusement park out at the edge of town, or the edge of the water. Half magic and half falling down, smelling of cotton candy and sea salt and machine oil. They're nearly all gone now, paved over, torn down, every last one. But you can still hear it, can't you, if you close your eyes? The carousel wheezing, the screams off the coaster, that crazy laughing lady. Some sounds a person just never loses. By late afternoon, you're sunburned without ever seeing the sun, wind-scoured and salt-stung and dead broke. And you turn for home, and the long ride back is its own quiet pleasure. You climb aboard the streetcar with the last of the day's crowd, sandy and tired and happy, and find your seats, and the warmth of the car after all that cold wind is the best feeling there is. Your legs ache, and your face is stiff with windburn and salt, and there's sand in your socks and your shoes, and most likely your hair, and you've got maybe a nickel left between the two of you, and you are as happy and as used up as a body can be. Other Playland kids fill the car, the same sandy, tired, contented look on every one of them. A balloon or two, a stuffed animal somebody actually won, a sleeping little one sprawled across a mother's lap. You go back over the whole day between you and Frankie, in the lazy, worn-out way you do. Best ride, worst game, the man and his giant panda, whether you've got enough left between you for a candy bar to split. You don't. Not quite. The conductor calls the stops in the dark. The fog's gone to night now, the lit windows of the city sliding by, gold and warm and blurred. Families at their suppers behind them, the whole town settling in while you rattle home through the middle of it. Two kids of the tired, happy end of a perfect day. The car rocks, the heater ticks and warms you through. The day's behind you, and it was a good one. The fog's going blue now, the early dark coming on, and the city lights are starting to prick on through it as you clatter back across town the way you came. Frankie's transistor has gone quiet, the battery worn down like the both of you. You don't talk much, you just watch the lit windows slide by, the neon coming up, the whole great foggy city wrapping itself up for the night. And you ride it home with your head against the cold glass. It's full dark, and the fogs come down thick by the time you climb your own street, and the lit windows of home have never looked better. Your Nona's kept your supper warm, and she clucks over you, the state of you, the sand in your shoes, and feeds you at the kitchen table while the family asks about the day, and you tell it all. The It's-It, the slide, Laughing Sal, the sea lions, Frankie and the bear he never won. Marie wants to know if you saw anybody she knows out there. Your Nona wants to know if you ate one single thing all day that wasn't fried or frozen, and you allow that you did not, and she shakes her head and crosses herself over it. You're almost too tired to finish the telling. The warm kitchen, the kept warm plate, the family's faces in the lamplight, after a whole cold, roaring, foggy day out at the edge of the world. Coming home to this is the other half of what makes a day like that so good. Your Nona heats you up a bowl of last night's soup besides, because in her book, a day with no proper hot meal in it is a day half wasted. And you eat it down to please her and find you were starving after all. Marie tells you about her own day, which mostly seems to have happened on the telephone. The radio plays soft on the windowsill, and the warm, steamy little kitchen, after all that cold gray wind and water, feels like the warmest, safest place in the whole wide world. Pop's already turned in for his early morning on the water. The flat goes quiet around you, everybody settling, the dishes done, a single lamp left burning. Out the window, the fog's so thick, the streetlight is just a soft smear of gold. Somewhere down the block, a radio plays low, the last song of the night, and you lie there warm under the blankets, with the cold day still on your skin, and the carousel still wheezing away somewhere down inside you, and you think, drifting off, that there could not possibly be a finer way to spend a summer day, and you're already half planning the next one. The foghorns are going, and you fall into bed wrung out and content, the carousel still turning somewhere behind your eyes, that crazy laugh still ringing faint in your ears, the whole long, bright, foggy day folded up and put away. A whole day, clear across the city and back, the ocean, the rides, all of it, for the price of a streetcar ticket and an It's-It. Nobody drove you, nobody fretted, nobody knew exactly where you were every minute, and that was just fine. You ever have a city like that when you were young, the whole of it yours, for a nickel and a free afternoon? I hope you had one, and I hope you used it all the way up, every foggy day of it. The best days come at you out of nowhere, and this one comes at supper a few nights later, when your father sets down his fork and says, like it's nothing, that he's got a line on 3 tickets to the Giants on Saturday, and would you and Frankie want to go? You followed every game all season on the radio, lying on the floor of your room after lights out with the set turned down low, the announcer painting it so clear you could see the whole thing, the rise and fall of his voice telling you what happened a half second before the words even got there. You know the lineup cold. You know the averages and the standings, who's hot, who's slumping. You've loved this team all summer from a distance, through a little speaker, And now you're going to stand right there and see them with your own two eyes. Your father grew up on this team, or the version of it that played back east before it ever came out west. And he's passed it down to you, the way fathers pass these things, without any ceremony, just by having the game on, just by caring. And now it's yours too, deep down, the way it will be yours the whole rest of your life. He doesn't make a speech of it, he just hands it to you, the way his own father handed it to him. And you take it without ever once noticing you've been given a thing. Would you? You're up out of your chair. Saturday cannot come fast enough. You mark the days, you and Frankie. You talk of nothing else. You argue lineups and averages you know cold off the backs of your baseball cards. Those cards are your whole fortune, kept in order in a shoebox, the doubles clothes-pinned to your bicycle spokes to clatter in the wheels, the stars protected like holy relics. You've got Mays, of course, more than one. Everybody fights to get Mays. You flip them and trade them and memorize the backs of them down to the last statistic. And you can read a kid's whole character by how he treats his cards. And the men on the fronts of them are about to step right off the cardboard and be real. That's the thing you can't get past, lying awake Friday night, too keyed up to sleep. You're up before anybody's Saturday, dressed long before you need to be, sitting on the front steps in the fog, watching for any sign your father's getting ready, asking him 3 times whether he's sure he's got the tickets. He has. He pats the pocket again to show you. Frankie turns up early too, neither one of you able to stand being indoors another minute, and the two of you sit out on the steps in the cold gray morning, gloves in your laps just in case, talking about nothing on God's earth but the game. Because the Giants are the whole world to a kid in this city, and your father, who works 6 days on the water and isn't a man for a lot of foolishness, is going to take you to see them. A whole Saturday, just the 3 of you, out at the ballpark. Let's go. Saturday morning, your mother makes you take a jacket, and then a sweater under the jacket, because she knows what your father in his excitement has forgotten, that Candlestick Park, even in the dead middle of summer, is the coldest place in San Francisco. You think she's fussing. You'll find out she's right. But right now, nothing can touch you. You're too wound up, bolting your breakfast, double-checking that your father really does have the tickets, which he does, tucked in his shirt pocket. And he pats them and winks. Frankie turns up scrubbed and grinning. And the 3 of you set off, riding out across the city and down toward the bay, the radio in every passing car already tuned to the pre-game, the announcer's voice carrying the same words out of a dozen open windows. That's the sound of a summer Saturday, that pre-game drifting out of every car and corner store. You could walk clear across the city and never miss a pitch. The whole town tuned to the one station, the one game. Your father drives with one arm out the window, in no hurry, easy in a way you never see him on a working day. Frankie's wedged in the back with you, the 2 of you too wound up to sit still, peppering your father with questions he mostly just grunts at, good-natured, his own mind already out at the park. The crowd thickens the closer you get. You start seeing them blocks away, the other fans, whole families of them, fathers and sons mostly, all in their caps, all flowing the same direction, like a current toward the park. There's a carnival air to it, vendors working the sidewalks with pennants and programs and peanuts cheaper than they'll go for inside, scalpers working the corners, the lots filling with cars. Your father finds a place to leave the car, and you join the river of people on foot. And the closer you get, the bigger that park looms up out of the fog, and the louder the murmur of the gathering crowd. There's a smell to the crowd walk too. Somebody's cigar, the exhaust, the salt off the bay, frying onions from a cart somewhere. Cops on horseback work the edges of it. A man hawks programs in a voice gone hoarse. And then you're through the turnstile. Your father hands over the tickets, and the man tears them and hands back the stubs, and you pocket your stub like it's folding money, because it is treasure. It's proof you were here. And into the dim, cold cavern under the stands, the smell of beer and mustard, the roar of the crowd muffled overhead, and the bright slot of green light up ahead where the tunnel lets out. And then the park itself rises up ahead, out on its windy point of land by the water. Candlestick, gray and modern, and already wrapping a scarf of fog around its top rim. And your heart goes up into your throat. You come up out of the dim concrete ramp into the light, and the whole green field opens up in front of you all at once. And it stops you dead in your tracks, the way it stops every kid, every single time. It's greener than green, that grass. Greener than anything in your gray, foggy city has a right to be. Mowed in perfect stripes, the base paths raked smooth and tan, the whole bowl of the stadium rising up around it, full of people. You've never seen so many people in one place in your life, tens of thousands of them, ringing the field on every side. A vast, restless, murmuring crowd, and you, one small speck in it. And somehow that's half the thrill, being a single drop in that great roaring sea. Out past the outfield wall, you can see the gray bay and a slice of the hills, and the fog already feeling its way over the top rim. Pennants snap stiff in the wind. The organ plays. A vendor's calling peanuts somewhere. Another one, beer. Their cries cutting clean through the din. You find your seats. Your father reads the numbers off the stubs and counts the rows up. And they're in the grandstand, not down low where the swells sit. But you can see the whole field just fine. The whole green geometry of it laid out below. And that's all that matters in the world. You settle in between your father and Frankie, and you think you could happily sit right here and just look at it, the field, the whole afternoon long, before a single pitch is ever thrown. The smell hits you next, cut grass and hot dogs and roasting peanuts and cigar smoke and spilled beer, the smell of baseball itself. And the cold hits you third, that famous candlestick wind, howling in off the bay and straight down your collar, so that you're glad of the jacket and the sweater both, and still not warm. Your father leads you to your seats and buys you a program and a bag of peanuts, and you crack them and drop the shells at your feet the way you meant to, and you drink it all in, the field, the cold, the crowd. Your father beside you, easy and happy for once, with the whole hard week behind him. You don't get to see him like this often, your father, loose, grinning, telling you about games he saw as a young man, players long retired, doing their batting stances. The ballpark does that to a man, peels a few years right off him, hands him back the boy he used to be for an afternoon. He shows you how to keep score in the program with a little pencil, the way his own father showed him, and you bend over it serious as a scholar. And he watches you do it with a look on his face you won't rightly understand until you're a father yourself someday. And this, somebody tells you, pointing, this is the very field where those Beatles played their big show, where every girl in the city screamed herself hoarse. Marie has still not forgiven your folks for not letting her go. Was there ever anything better than a ball game with your father? The green of that field when you came up out of the tunnel, bigger, greener than you ever pictured it. The smell of the grass and the hot dogs. Him buying you a program and a sack of peanuts. A whole afternoon, just the two of you, in the middle of a roaring crowd. A lot of fathers couldn't say much, but they could take you to the ball game, and somehow that said all of it. You ever get an afternoon like that? Hold it close. Before the game, there's the whole long, delicious ritual of the warm-up, and you don't want to miss a second of it. Batting practice is still going when you reach your seats, the crack of the bats carrying flat and sharp across the field. balls arcing lazy out into the empty outfield, where a few players shag them easy. You watch the players up as close as you'll ever get, playing catch along the foul lines, signing a program or two for the kids hanging over the rail, joking in the dugout. The grounds crew drags the infield smooth and chalks the lines bright white and sets the bases down. The vendors work the aisles now, hot dogs, peanuts, Cracker Jack, beer, soda pop, calling their wares, making change one-handed without ever looking down. You spend your father's money careful, and your own hardly at all, hoarding it. A program and a sack of peanuts is plenty, and the peanuts are the main event. You crack them and eat them and drop the shells at your feet like everybody else. And by the late innings, the whole concrete floor is ankle-deep in shells. Frankie's already got his eye on a foul ball that hasn't even been hit yet. The organ runs through its little tunes, and the old hand-turned scoreboard out in left gets its numbers set for the day. And then the lineups come booming out over the loudspeaker, each name bringing its own cheer, and everybody stands and pulls off their caps for the anthem, the whole vast crowd on its feet and gone quiet for a minute, the flag snapping straight out in the Candlestick wind. And then a roar, and the home team comes trotting out onto that green field, and it begins. And then the Giants take the field, and out to center, loping easy, comes Willie Mays, and the whole place stands up and roars. You've seen him 1,000 times on the television and the baseball cards, but to see him out there in the flesh, real, close enough to make out the number on his back, is something else entirely. He's older now than he is on the cards, you can see it, the gray coming in. A careful way of running that wasn't there in the old film. But he's still Willie Mays, still the best there ever was. And every time he comes up to the plate, the buzz runs through the crowd, and everybody leans in together. Kids hang over the rail down by the dugout screaming his name. Grown men go quiet and respectful. You watch his every move, the way he tugs the cap, the way he settles in the box, storing it all up to copy in the schoolyard come fall. He plays center field like he was born to it, drifting under the long ones, that famous basket catch. And at the plate, he's all coiled power and then the swing. Marichal works the mound with that impossible high leg kick, the front foot pointed clean up at the sky. And you try to file it away to attempt yourself later, knowing full well you'll fall flat on your back. Between the innings, the players come and go, and the grounds crew tends the field, and the organ plays, and the peanut man passes by again. The fog thickens an inning at a time, and the whole green diamond, lit and perfect down there below you, ringed all around by the gray and the cold and the roaring crowd, is about the most beautiful thing your 14-year-old eyes have ever taken in. McCovey and Cepeda dig in, big and dangerous. It's a close game, a pitcher's game, the kind the wind out here makes, low scoring, long at bats, every single run fought for, tooth and nail. You follow it pitch by pitch, scoring it down in your program. Your father quizzing you low under the noise. What should the manager do here? Bunt or swing away? Walk the big man or pitch to him? You learn more baseball in those 9 innings beside your father than in a whole season of cards and radio put together. And the crowd lives and dies on every pitch. A great collective groan, a great collective roar. And you are a part of all of it. There's a rhythm to a ball game that gets right down into you. The long, patient stretches where nothing much happens, and the men talk and the peanuts go around, and then the sudden crack and the leap of the whole crowd, the tension winding tight with a runner on, and the release. Slow and fast, dull and unbearable by turns, and somehow that's exactly right, exactly the way a summer afternoon ought to go. Your father keeps the score in his neat small hand. The shadow of the grandstand crawls out slow across the grass. The wind makes a circus of the game. Pop flies that climb and hang and blow halfway across the diamond, fielders staggering under them, and the men in the seats all telling the story again, the way they do every game, of the all-star game, where the wind blew the pitcher clean off the mound and they called a balk on him. And when Mays gets hold of one, when that bat cracks and the ball climbs out into the gray and the wind for once can't hold it, the whole park comes up off its seats as one, your father included, hollering, and you with them, your peanuts spilling, screaming yourself raw for the best ball player there ever was. Now us fellas and our fathers would freeze 9 full innings out at that ballpark and call it heaven. And a lot of you ladies had the good sense to stay home where it was warm. But don't you think for a minute you weren't part of it. A summer evening, the game drifting out of every open window and every car radio up and down the block. The whole city listening as one, while you went about your own evening. You remember that, don't you? That was the sound of summer. Every one of us had it, one way or the other. The game settles into its long middle innings, and the cold settles in with it, deep and serious now. And you understand at last exactly what your mother meant. The fog's pouring in over the top of the stadium now in earnest, the wind never letting up, and you're huddled down in your jacket and your sweater with your hands jammed in your armpits, and your father buys a round of hot chocolates that you wrap your frozen fingers around like a lifeline. Half the crowd's got transistor radios pressed to their ears, even here, even now, listening to the broadcast of the very game playing out in front of them. Because the radio men tell it so well it's worth hearing twice. And the low murmur of all those little radios runs under the whole ballpark like a tide. It's the strangest, finest thing, all those radios. You're right there watching it live with your own eyes. And yet the radio call somehow adds to it, names what you're seeing, makes it official, makes it history even as it's happening. Your father holds one to his ear half the time and watches with the other half, and somehow misses nothing at all. The vendors keep coming, slower now in the deep cold. It's coffee and hot chocolate they're selling by this hour, the cold doing their selling for them. People pull blankets out of nowhere. Nobody dreams of leaving. You're so cold your teeth are going, and you would sooner die than admit it and risk being hauled home an inning early. Your father notices anyway and pulls you in against his side without a word. And you let him. And the warmth of that is better than any blanket made. The wind howls over the rim, the fog glows in the lights. Down on the field, the players blow on their bare hands between pitches. It is the coldest you have ever been in your life, and you would not trade it for a seat by any fire on earth. The men around you keep up a running argument about every pitch and every call, your father right in the thick of it. A foul ball arcs back into the seats a few rows over, and a dozen grown men turn into kids scrambling for it. A boy 2 sections down comes up with one clean, a real game ball, and holds it up over his head, and his whole section cheers him like he won the pennant himself, and you ache with the envy of it. To go home with an actual major league ball. You spend the next hour with your glove up just in case, because of course you brought your glove. Every kid brings his glove. The wind takes a hot dog wrapper and sails it clear across 3 sections. The fog dims the lights to soft gold halos, and still the game grinds on, tight and cold and wonderful. The lights come on against the gray, and the cold is brutal, and the game is close, and you would not be one single other place in the entire world. It comes down to the end, the way the good ones do, and when the giants pull it out, the whole frozen park erupts, and you and your father and Frankie go pouring out with the happy horse crowd into the early dark. Everybody's stamping and grinning and replaying it, the catch, the hit, the last out. 40,000 people all talking at once, funneling down the ramps and out toward the cars and the buses. You're swept along in it, the great happy tide of the crowd, holding onto your father's sleeve so as not to lose him. Everybody hoarse and grinning and frozen and replaying the same 3 plays. Strangers talk to strangers. A man hoists a sleeping kid up onto his shoulder. The parking lot's a slow chaos of headlights and horns and everybody trying to leave at once, and nobody much minding, the wind warming the whole crowd against the cold. On the ride home, the 3 of you can't quit going over it. The catch, the hit, the last out. Your father doing the announcer's voice now, Frankie arguing some call. You just warm clear through in spite of the cold, for having been there for every minute of it. The radio post-game tells the whole thing back to you one more time. The fog swallows the taillights up ahead, and you ride home through the dark with your ticket stub still in your pocket, and your hero's swing still playing over and over behind your eyes. You're frozen to the bone and hoarse from yelling, and you have never felt better. Your father's lit up, 20 years younger, doing the play-by-play with his hands. And the long ride home through the foggy dark is all of it told and retold. The radio on for the post-game, the announcers saying the same things you all just saw with your own eyes, which somehow makes it realer, makes it count. It's full dark, and the fog's in thick when you finally climb your own steep street, frozen and spent and happy, and the warm flat takes you in. Your mother and Marie and your nonna want to hear all of it, and you and your father tell it over each other, the cold, the wind, Mays, the catch, the hit, the win. While your mother warms you up a plate and clucks about the cold, and reminds your father, not unkindly, that she told him about that jacket. He takes it grinning, because he's too happy to do anything else, and because she's right. She's always right. You eat by the stove with the blanket still around your shoulders, telling Marie the parts she'll care about and your nonna the parts she won't. And slowly the whole long day catches up with you, the cold, the noise, the miles of it, and your eyes start sliding shut right there at the table. Your father carries the program in and sets it up on the shelf, your scorecard and all, where it will stay. Your nonna doesn't follow the baseball, but she follows the joy of it, and that's enough for her. You can't get warm fast enough. She wraps a blanket around your shoulders, and your mother sets something hot in front of you. And the stove ticks away, and slow, slow. The deep candlestick cold lets go of your bones. Marie pretends not to care a thing about the baseball, but she asks, careful, whether you happen to see, and here she names a certain young outfielder, and you understand all at once that she's got her own reasons for caring about that team, and you don't tease her for it, not this once. Pop sits with his shoes off and his feet to the stove, satisfied clear through, the work week and the cold and all the rest of it held off a while longer by 9 good innings of ball. You're worn out past sense, frozen clean through and slowly thawing by the stove, and you take yourself off to bed at last with the whole green, roaring afternoon still going in your head, the field, the wind, the crack of the bat, your father on his feet beside you yelling like a boy. Every kid had his heroes, the ball players whose names you knew the way you knew your own, whose stances you copied in the backyard with a broomstick for a bat, whose cards you kept in a shoebox like buried treasure. Mine, yours, every boy's. Most of those men are gone now, and the parks they played in are mostly torn down too. But you say one of those names to a fella my age, and you watch his face change. We were boys once, and they were giants, and some of that just never washes off. Rest easy now. Sunday comes up soft and gray and slow, and the first thing you know of it, even before you're awake, is the smell, because the sauce is already on. Your Nona's been up since before light, the way she always is on a Sunday, and she's got the gravy going on the back of the stove, the Sunday sauce that goes on early and simmers low all the day long, so the whole flat fills with it, garlic and tomato and basil and the slow-cooking meat, and you wake to it the way you wake to the foghorns, without quite noticing. A smell that means home, and means Sunday, and means everything. You lie there a minute, just breathing it in before you get up, because you know, even at your age, that it's the smell of the whole week's best day. There's no rushing a Sunday morning, no boats for your father, no school, no work, just the slow getting ready. The bath taken in turn, the good clothes laid out, the bells coming on across the fog, one church answering another. Marie's got the bathroom and won't give it up. Your father grumbles at his necktie in the mirror. And your Nonna moves through the middle of it all in her black, slow and sure, the still center of the whole turning morning. There are church bells starting up across the foggy morning. The radio's off, it's Sunday, you go to Mass first, everything else can wait. And the whole family's stirring, getting into the Sunday clothes. Your father in his one good dark suit and miserable in the collar. Your mother in her good dress and her hat. Marie taking forever at the mirror. Your Nonna in her black with her beads already in her hand. She stirred that pot and crossed herself and said her prayers and got half the dinner underway before the rest of you so much as cracked an eye. And she'll do it all again next Sunday, and the one after that, world without end. The sauce gets one last stir and the lid set just so before you all leave. It'll cook down low and untended right through the whole Mass, the way it's been done in this family longer than anyone can say. And then you're all out the door together into the gray, the whole scrubbed family of you, falling in with the streams of other families all headed the same way up the hill. You pass other Sunday kitchens as you go, the same smell pouring out of every open window up the block. Every family's sauce a little different, and all of them somehow the same. So the whole foggy neighborhood smells of Sunday dinner cooking, of garlic and tomato and the slow promise of the afternoon. Bells from this church and that one cross each other in the gray. The men nod to your father, the women to your mother, everybody bound the same direction, the whole hill emptying toward its churches. Let's go. You walk to church as a family through the gray morning up to Washington Square, where the white twin spires of Saints Peter and Paul stand up out of the fog over the whole neighborhood. Inside it's cool and dim, and it smells of cold stone and candle wax and incense, and the ladies' Sunday perfume, and the colored light comes muted through the windows, and the whole place fills with the neighborhood. Everybody you know, scrubbed and pressed and Sunday best, the old women up front with their beads, the big families filling the pews, the men in their suits looking like the collars are choking them. The organ plays and the Mass goes the old way, the Latin rolling out the way it has for centuries, the standing and the kneeling, the bells, Father Maffei up at the altar. It's a long Mass and a hard pew, and your mind wanders the way a kid's will. To the dinner waiting at home, to the ball game, to the back of Connie's neck 3 pews up. But you stand when you're meant to stand, and kneel when you're meant to kneel. the whole congregation rising and settling together like one breathing thing. And the old responses come out of you without a thought, worn smooth by a lifetime of Sundays. The little ones squirm and get pinched quiet. An old man dozes off and gets elbowed by his wife. A baby starts up and gets walked out to the back. The collection plate comes down the rows, passed hand to hand, the coins and the folded dollar bills, and your mother presses a nickel into your palm to put in. They sing the old hymns, the whole plain congregation going up together, the good voices and the bad all mixed in. And an old woman behind you sings hers in Italian to a tune the rest sing in Latin, and nobody minds a bit. The candles burn down. The colored light moves slow across the floor. And for a while, the whole hard week and the whole wide world wait outside the doors. And there's just the cool old room and the old words and the whole neighborhood breathing together as one. You don't follow every word of the Latin, nobody your age does, but you know the shape of it by heart, the rise and fall of it. And you know that this is the room the whole neighborhood passes through, every one of them, christened here and married here and carried out of here at the end. Your own family's whole history is written into this one room. Your parents were married at that altar. You were christened at that font. And one day, you know without anyone telling you, there'll be funerals here too, the old ones first. The same cool stone room holds all of it, the whole long parade of the neighborhood's comings and goings. And there's a deep, steadying comfort in that, and a place that stood here before you and will stand here after, holding the whole village in its cupped stone hands. Connie's a few pews up with her family, and she turns once, and you both look quick back to the front. Out the high windows, the fog sits white on Washington Square. There was a church like that at the heart of every old neighborhood, the one everybody belonged to, christened in, married in, carried out of at the last. You went every Sunday, felt like it or not, the whole family scrubbed and pressed, and the whole neighborhood was there in the one room with you. Maybe you didn't follow every word, but you knew, sitting there, that you belonged to something bigger than your own front door. That's a thing a lot of folks would give a great deal to feel just once more. Stay close now. When Mass lets out, the whole neighborhood spills onto Washington Square, and nobody's in any hurry to go home, fog or no fog. The men gather in their dark suits on the church steps and the corners, talking low. The fishing, the weather, the ball game, the old country, their hands behind their backs or jammed in their pockets, in no rush at all. You drift among them, catching pieces of it. A fishing story you've heard before, an argument about the giants, an opinion on somebody delivered low behind a hand. The old men who knew your grandfather tell you again that you're getting tall. Father Maffei works the foot of the steps, shaking every hand, a word for everyone, calling the children by name. And it's all so ordinary, so exactly the same as last Sunday and the Sunday before that you don't think a thing of it. The whole neighborhood gathered loose and easy in the one place, in no hurry to be anywhere but right here. You and Frankie and a cousin or two get a game of tag going around the benches until somebody's mother tells you to settle down before the good clothes. The fog's lifting just enough now to show the green of the grass and the white of the spires above it. The old men feed crumbs to the birds, and the whole neighborhood stands around in its Sunday best in no hurry at all, the bells still going, before, by ones and twos, the families start to peel off toward home, and the Sunday dinners pulling all of them back. The women cluster and visit, trading the week's news, admiring the babies, their good shoes getting damp in the wet grass. The old folks take the benches. The kids, let loose at last from the long stillness of the Mass, tear around the square, scattering the pigeons. The bells are still going, and the whole green square under its white spires is full of the neighborhood being the neighborhood for a while, in no hurry, glad of each other, before the fog and the appetite send everybody home to their Sunday dinners. And then home, and the sauce that's been pulling at you all morning, and the Sunday dinner, which is the whole point and center of the week. It comes in courses the way it does, and it takes all afternoon. First, the antipasti, the salami and the olives and the cheese and the peppers. Then the pasta, with that sauce that's been simmering since dawn, and you could make a whole meal of just that and the bread for soaking. And some weeks that's near about what you do, you and the cousins, mopping the plate with the bread till there's not a streak of sauce left, getting hollered at for it and doing it anyway. The bread's the good crusty kind from the bakery, bought fresh that very morning, and there's never quite enough, and somehow always enough. The wine goes round the grown-ups, the dark homemade kind somebody's uncle presses in his basement, and the talk gets louder with it, and warmer, and the arguments friendlier. Then the meat that's been cooking down in the sauce, and the greens, and more bread, and the wine for the grown-ups poured dark and easy, and a little splashed in your glass too on a Sunday. And last of all, the coffee, the real stuff, strong and black for the grown-ups, an inch of it cut with a lot of milk for you, and the dessert, the cookies and a cake or the cannoli, the little espresso cups clicking on their saucers, a bottle of anisette out for the old men to lace their coffee with. Nobody moves. Nobody wants to. The plates sit where they are, and the long candle of the Sunday afternoon burns down slow, while the family just stays at the table, talking, full, in no hurry the whole world could put on them. There's a particular deep contentment to the tail end of a Sunday dinner, too full to move. The grown-ups talking low over the coffee, a little one asleep right where it dropped. The whole long afternoon already half gone into the meal, and nobody minding in the least. You push back from the table at last, stuffed past good sense and happy clear through, and slip off to find the cousins. 3 generations crowd around that table, more if the aunts and uncles and cousins come, your nonna at the head of it in spirit, if not in seat, because she's up and down the whole meal, watching, urging more onto everybody's plate, hardly sitting at all. You're full long before it's over, and you eat more anyway, because to quit eating at your nonna's table is to insult her personally, and she'll let you know it. Eat, eat, you're nothing but bones. And so you eat, and you're glad of it, every bite. The little ones get fed and slip down to play under the table. The aunts and uncles tell the same stories they tell every Sunday, and everybody laughs in the same places. Somebody gets up to help and gets waved right back down. The whole loud, warm crowd of your blood is crammed around that one table, and you are in the dead middle of it, exactly where you belong. The talk runs loud and overlapping in 2 languages. Somebody's always laughing. The fog presses white at the windows, and the flat is warm and golden and full. And the afternoon just disappears into the food and the family, and there is nowhere else in the world, and no want of anywhere else. That sauce, the Sunday gravy some folks called it, went on the stove before church and cooked down low all the day long, and the whole house smelled of it, and the whole family came to the table for it. And the women made it every Sunday of their lives, the way their own mothers made it, by feel, by heart. Not a recipe written down anywhere, but in their hands. You remember a Sunday table like that? The women up and down the whole meal, feeding every soul there, sitting down themselves dead last, if at all. That was love, is what that was. We just never thought to call it anything grander than Sunday dinner. The Sunday afternoon goes long and slow and full, the way it's meant to, and the flat settles into the best kind of idleness. The men loosen their collars at last and sit back with the wine and a deck of cards at the kitchen table. A slow, loud game with a lot of arguing and not much money. The cigars coming out, the smoke curling up. You watch the card game a while. You don't follow half of it. The Italian game with the strange old deck. But you follow the heat and the joy of the arguing. The slap of the cards on the table. The way your father throws his head back and laughs. The kitchen behind them is a warm steam of women and dishes and low talk and the radio. The whole flat is full and warm and slow. And out the window, the fog holds the gray Sunday perfectly still, like the whole city's been told to rest, and for once is minding. You drift between the card game and the kitchen and the window, restless and full at the same time, the way you get on a long Sunday. Your mother gives you a small job and then shoos you out of the way of it. Your father deals you into a hand and the men go easy on you, and then they don't. The afternoon stretches out with nowhere to be and nothing owed to anybody. The rarest thing there is in a working family's week, and you don't know quite what to do with all that time. And you don't have to know. And that's the whole gift of a Sunday, the not having to. The women clear and wash and keep the coffee coming and talk in the kitchen in a steady, warm current. Marie's on the telephone in the hall, the cord stretched as far as it'll go for privacy. You and a cousin or two slip out to the square or the steps for a while, too full to do much but sit. Somewhere a radio's on low now, the afternoon ball game maybe, half listened to. The fog never lifts all day. And the whole neighborhood is doing just exactly this. Behind every window, up and down the Foggy Hill, the same dinner, the same wine, the same long, idle Sunday. The whole village resting all at once. Along about late afternoon, too full to sit still a minute longer, you slip out into the neighborhood, and a North Beach Sunday is a slow and beautiful thing to walk through. The fog's still in, soft and gray, but the whole village is out in it. Families strolling the sidewalks in their Sunday clothes, walking off their dinners, the babies in their carriages, the old couples, arm in arm. Over on the edge of the square, the men have a game of bocce going on the hard dirt court, the heavy balls clacking together. A knot of old-timers in their hats arguing every single throw in Italian, deadly serious. A little money quietly passing hands. A man sells gelato off a cart, and you spend a coin on a cone and walk along licking it. You watch the bocce a while. You don't really know the rules, but you understand the seriousness of it. The way the old men crouch and squint and measure the distances with their eyes and argue a quarter-inch in furious Italian. Somebody's grandfather lets you roll one and laughs when it sails wild. The fog drifts through the square. A couple of girls Marie's age go by arm in arm, pretending not to see the boys who are pretending not to see them. It is the most ordinary Sunday afternoon in the world, and you walk straight through the middle of it without a care, because there'll be another just like it next week. The cafe's open and full of men over their Sunday coffee. The bells ring the evening service, and the whole neighborhood drifts and visits and rests in the gray, the one slow, unhurried afternoon of the whole hard-working week. And you walk it, slow and full and happy, nodding to the faces you've known your entire life. As the gray light starts to go, the family draws in close again, and your nonna, warm with the wine and the day, gets going on the old country. She tells it the way she always tells it, half in English and half sliding into Italian when the English won't reach. The village in the hills above Genoa, the family she left, the long, frightening crossing in the steerage of a ship as a girl, the first hard years in this country with not a word of the language. And she tells about North Beach when she came to it, when it was all Italian, all greenhorns and fishermen and families packed in close, everybody from the old country, the whole neighborhood like one big quarrelsome family. She tells about the festa days, the saints carried in procession through these very streets on men's shoulders, the band and the whole neighborhood out behind them, about the blessing of the fleet down at the wharf, the priest blessing the boats for a safe season on the water. She tells of weddings that ran 3 days, and funerals the whole street turned out for. She makes you see it, the North Beach of her young years, louder, poorer, more crowded, more purely itself than the one you know. A whole vanished world, alive again for an hour in the warm dark in her voice. You wonder sometimes what it took, what she carried, a girl alone on a ship, leaving everyone she'd ever known for a country she had never seen, not a word of the language in her, and somehow making a whole life out of it, a husband, children, grandchildren, this warm, crowded flat, that pot of sauce. She doesn't tell it like it was hard, though you know that it was. She tells it like it was simply what you did, and what you did you got on with and didn't complain of. And you understand, listening, that the old woman by the lamp is tougher than anyone in this warm room will likely ever have to be. You've heard all of it before. You let her tell it again, her old voice going on low in the gathering dark, because it's the truest thing you know, and because it's hers, and because some part of you understands even now that a day is coming when there'll be no one left who remembers it firsthand. So you listen this time the way you don't always. You put down whatever you were doing, and you let the old woman talk, the Italian and the English winding together, the village and the ship and the early days. And you try to hold on to it, knowing somehow that you're the one it's being handed to now. That one day you'll be the one who remembers her remembering. The fog's at the window, the lamps turned low, and her voice goes on, carrying the whole old country across an ocean and 60 years, to a boy on a foggy hill who'll keep it now, whether he means to or not. Night comes down foggy and close, and after everyone's drifted off to their own corners, you stand a while at the front window, looking down over the neighborhood before bed. The fog's in thick, softening the streetlights to globes, blurring the neon down on Columbus to a warm smear, and the foghorns have started up again out on the bay. A last cable car climbs past, near empty, its bell muffled in the fog. The neighborhood's bedding down around you, a window going dark, the last few notes of somebody's radio cut off, a cat crossing the wet street and gone. The flat behind you is quiet now, the company gone home, the dishes done, the family settling. The big saucepot sits soaking in the sink, scraped clean to the metal. And the fog beads up on the glass and runs. The church spires are lost up in the gray, and you don't know it, standing there. You can't. You're a kid. And North Beach is forever. The church and the wharf and Nonna in her kitchen, and the whole warm Italian world of it, fog and bells and Sunday sauce, world without end. You don't know that it's already changing, quiet, right under your feet. That the families are starting to go, out to the avenues and across the bridge to the suburbs, that the old ones are passing and the young ones aren't staying, that this loud, warm village is living out the last of its best days, And nobody said a word, because nobody can quite see it yet. You don't know that Nonna won't always be at that stove. You don't know that you'll be an old man someday who would give back everything he owns just to climb this one foggy street again and smell that sauce and hear her laughing in the kitchen. You don't know a bit of it, and you shouldn't. And the not knowing is the whole mercy of being young. So you just stand at the window in the fog a while longer, and then your mother calls you into bed. And you go, and the flat goes dark and quiet behind you, and the fog folds down over the whole steep neighborhood, over the church and the square and the shuttered shops on Columbus, over the boats riding at the wharf, over every warm-lit window going dark one by one. And out on the bay the foghorns call and answer, low and far, the way they have all your life, the way they will all the long summers to come, singing the whole foggy city down into sleep. Well, that's our Sunday, and that's our visit. I hope you felt it. The fog, the bread, the bells, the whole warm, loud world of it. Now, maybe you grew up in a neighborhood like that, a church on the corner and your grandmother's cooking down the hall. Or maybe yours was nothing like it at all. It doesn't matter. You had a place that knew your name and people in it who loved you, and a Sunday table you'd give just about anything to sit down at one more time. Tell me about it down below, your neighborhood, your people, your Sunday. And if you're new here, pull up a chair and stay. There's a whole country of them left for us to remember together. I'm Henry. I miss those days. The sweet old America.